Hey guys, Dr. Dex here. Welcome to our channel. Thanks for coming. We'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button before we get into this video. Thank you for doing that. I'll thank you right now. This week it was all about softening and lots of it. So behind me is the main attraction of this build. So we're just nearly done with the back of the house. I'm really excited. So this week what we did was mostly softening on the main deck. And we got that all cut in, and there was some trickery going on, trying to make the lines straight. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can always go to my Instagram social media page and follow some of the videos there as well. If you don't get what you need here, usually you can find it over there. We basically have buttoned that up, and now we're down to the final trim pieces of the beam wrap and the posts. So basically, we're just trying to make this beam and posts look like these beam and posts over here. And you can see there's a double stack wrap on the beam, and then the bottom of the beam is also wrapped, and then each post is wrapped, and then there's a column base and a column cap that trim out each post. Lucky for me, I already built all the column caps and bases, so when I was cutting all of those over there, I made the ones for over here. We already have all the wraps for the posts cut to length. We just have to assemble those. So that stuff's gonna go pretty quickly. Right now we're in kind of the painstaking part of assembly on the beam because there's hardware in the way, so we have to take a router and notch out some stuff and make sure that it fits properly as we're building. So that's what we're doing right now. We pretty much almost have the beam on the inside done and the underside's almost complete. So once we get that finished off, then all we have to do is come out and do the backside, put a couple end caps on it, and then we can wrap the posts. So not sure where we're gonna get with all that today, but our goal is to kind of get that buttoned up, start getting our tools cleaned up and all that and transferred up front so that tomorrow we can start on building and doing the demo on that little front deck that we're gonna be doing. And also some more softening on the inside entry to the house. Sometimes when you're doing these projects and the client really likes your work, they might ask you, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And on this particular deck, we did quite a bit of that and enhanced it and made it nicer, made it more artistic. So let's get going. So whenever I make trim or do parts, I try to be as equal as I can as far as my layout for fasteners. So I'm always pre-laying out where I'm putting my screws. Now these screws are going to be concealed with our Cortex hidden plugging system. I still like to have everything kind of placed where I want it and laid out real nice. And on this one, you'll see I routed out the bottom because there's a positive post to beam connection with some heavy duty fasteners, some structural legs in the way. So I had to kind of route this out so that when I put this piece in, that this will clear it and fit properly. And then I had to make sure I laid out the screws right so that they weren't intersecting in that metal plate as well. Because believe me, I've done it all. I've done it all. I've made the mistakes. I've laid it out this way. So usually I do the layouts and the trim. So I'll do the layout and then I'll have somebody come over and help me install. But on this little piece, it'll just be myself. So let's go install this over on the far end of the deck. All right, so I have my trim piece. You can see underneath the beam has to be trimmed out first. This is the last piece. You can see that notch I was telling you about earlier right here. It's to eliminate this problem right here. If I just try to put my board in without notching this, this is gonna become a huge problem. So I have this cut on this angle that I need, and these boards are just the right width. So if I get them too far one way or another, they're not really gonna fit too well. So I gotta make sure that I have them spaced properly. That looks pretty darn good. I'm gonna go ahead and knock that in. And then we'll Cortex that last. Okay, so that's done. Now I can finish putting up my fascia over here. All right, so up here we have another metal bracket that's in our way, and there's a couple screws that are poking out. If I don't identify those and bore out the back side of this trim, then this board's gonna stick out too far and it won't work right. So we gotta set it up here, hit it with the mallet, identify where these are, then take the board down, drill it out, and then I can finish my layout on this board. So it's a little bit of extra work, but then it goes together so nice. So We'll put this where we want it, and then I'll use the soft side. There's two different sides to this mallet, two different compounds. The yellow side is harder, the red side is softer, so I'll use the red side to tap on this, so I'm not marring up my material. Okay, now you'll see on the back side where those two marks have been made. Now I can identify those, and I'll take a 1/2-inch drill bit and I'll bore those out without drilling through this 1/2-inch fascia, and then it'll sit nice and flat. All right, so here's my 1/2-inch drill bit. I'm just gonna put it over the tops of these two marks, and you gotta be careful, because if you go too deep, you'll drill through, and that's bad. You'd have to start all over again with a new piece. But you gotta make sure that you're at least a 1/4 inch deep to maybe 3/8 till you clear the head of that screw. Now that that's done, I can do my layout. Knowing that there's a bracket back here, I know that I gotta pull about 3 inches back from this side. So when I do my layouts for my fin fascia, I'm gonna try to lay this out about 12 inches on center. And we haven't gotten into a lot of layout videos. So if you guys like this video and you wanna learn more about how I do my layouts, as you can see on my square, I've taken a Sharpie and I've marked the 2 lines where I want to be when I put my screws into this thin trim. These, I can erase this with an alcohol wipe or some thinner, but it really helps me stay on point, because it's so easy to mismark. It is so easy to mismark a board, and either you got to Cortex that or you throw it away and start with another one. So to avoid that, I like to make sure my marks are on point. So even as a professional, I'm always trying to figure out ways to, 1, speed things up, and 2, make it so that I don't screw up. It's always good when you don't screw up. Okay, so I've got that side marked. I've identified where everything is. I want to make sure I'm clearing that bracket. And then over here, now the fascia boards I'm using for the lower section of the trim, they only come 12 feet long. Our beam is over 12 feet long, so I'm gonna have a 12-foot piece and like a 3-foot piece. It's about a 15-foot run. So I'm gonna have a butt joint right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure 1 inch back from the edge of the board, and I'm gonna go ahead and pre-drill a couple little screw lines. Okay, now I'm gonna figure out my spacing. Now for this thin fascia, this is AZEK Dark Hickory. It's their fascia board. They come 11.5 inches wide by 12 feet long, and they're only a 1/2 inch thick. So we use color matching screws. There's some guys that'll Cortex this, but I think it's risky. I won't do it. I think in our environment, the fascia boards are gonna pop. It is a cleaner look, but I think I'd rather have a nice stainless steel color match screw that will hold this for eternity. Now we have to put these screws every 12 inches or less. So that now I'm gonna see how far these 2 end screw holes are apart. And then I will determine what my centers are gonna be, and we'll show you how to do that. We're about 140 inches, which here's 144. So that's 12 feet. So to be 12 foot on center, we're 4 inches long. So that means we'd have to come back 4 inches in the average. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 spaces. Let's do a quick calculation here. 140 inches divided by 12 spaces is 11 and 11/16 would be my layout. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our square. We're gonna go 11 and 11/16 for our first mark, and then we're gonna hit plus, and then we're gonna hit equals. And every time we hit equals, it's gonna add 11 and 11/16 to our measurement. So I've got my first one laid out. I'm gonna go ahead and mark it. Now I'm gonna hit equals, and it's gonna go to 23 and 5/16. And then I'm gonna hit equals, and it goes to 35 inches. That's an easy one to mark. And then so on and so forth until we get to the end of our run, 46 and 11. And this way I have nice equal runs, and all my screws are spaced out equally as well. So any particular people that might look up at my workmanship will say, hey, all right. Believe it or not, it's really easy to mess this up. That's why sometimes I'll put electrical tape on my square if I don't have a Sharpie or it's not marking out right or something like that. Okay, and usually before I mark my very last mark, which would be 128 and 5/16, I'll put the square there, but then I'll also check it with my tape measure just to make sure that I'm close. So from this set of holes to the square, I have 11 and 5/8, and from the square to my last set of holes, I have 11 and 7/8. So I'm about an 1/8 inch off. So if I go to 11 and 3/4, this should be about 11 3/4, and that's where I'm gonna make my last 2 marks. There. Now, if anybody picks up on that 1/16 of an inch off, you're hired from 12 feet down. If you can look up and say, hey, those 2 screws are a 1/16 inch the wrong way. Well, they won't be because they're actually equally spaced, but I don't know if anybody else is gonna be able to tell. Probably not. You'll notice over here, I have 2 different sets of screws. One set of screws is stainless steel, just multiple colors, whatever, for Cortexing the big boards. But when we're doing the thin boards, we have another set of screws that we have faced. Now these are color matched screws. They're made by Facia. They're branded under AZEK. They're called top lock screws. This is the dark gray color, and you see the heads all have been painted. I'm not sure if they're painted or powder coated or baked on enamel or whatever. And then the rest of the screw is stainless. And when you put it down, it has a similar color tone. It's not perfect, but it's close enough that when it's installed, it looks really nice. So we're gonna pre-thread all those color match screws into this board I just laid out. So all we gotta do when we go up to the deck is just put it in. So I'm just gonna take a T20 and I'm just gonna pre-thread these. Now that those are installed, I will take this with my assistant and we'll go up and we'll fit it real quick, and then we'll start installing the screws, and then I'll start measuring for the next piece. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see it that great, but we have a gap here in the bottom of our fascia board. And that's because the bottom of these 2 boards might be tilting in a little bit. So the way for me to fix this is to shim behind this screw and push this board out. Looks like I need a little bit more than that. So I'm gonna start breaking this off until I get what I need. That looks pretty good right there. Because this post is getting wrapped and then it's getting a column cap, it'll hide this shim. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a screw in here. So now that that's done, I don't know if I can snap this. Once we get this wrapped, you won't see that. There we go. And that'll be that. So the inside of the trim is now done. We just gotta go do the same thing on the outside, and then we can start wrapping these posts. Alright guys, thanks for watching. That's all the time we have for you today. So if you liked what we did, or you learned a little something about wrapping beams, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when we're putting out new content. Like this video and leave us a comment below. Let us know how we're doing. Thanks for watching guys. Have a great day.